God's prophecy. God's prophecy. Now, this is truly a spiritual message, and this is truly one of those messages where it's just not for everybody. It's not, it doesn't matter if you're hearing this or not. This will only bear witness with God's chosen people and people who God truly has interest in bringing in his kingdom. That is it. Everybody else will perish and be in hell and the lake of fire. Certain people will be in outer darkness, the abyss, and all these other deep places that God has truly created, and it gets more and more deeper. There's many more places, but, I'm just being led by the Spirit. I will not quench God's Spirit concerning anything. But anyhow, God's prophecy. More or less, this is a beautiful thing for God's people, if I'm being real, because see, the thing about God's prophecy is God's chosen people are already in it. As I'm being led by the Spirit, as I'm being led by him saying these matters too. Yeah. God's people are already in God's prophecy. It doesn't matter about certain mistakes, and it doesn't really matter about certain sins and all that stuff. Notice I say certain sins too. There's other, like the higher level sins we truly have to refrain from doing and resist by the Spirit of God, not on our own strength or nothing like that. No. We do have to put much effort and be in relationship with God concerning these matters as I'm being led by the Spirit. But yeah, it doesn't matter about like certain things like concerning our struggles, because we still have sin too. But the thing is that we are just not of this world, and more or less, we are we are a part of God's prophecy. Once again, this has nothing to do with being perfect and all that funny stuff. No. But anyhow, yeah, God's prophecy. God's chosen people are already in it. And honestly, everybody is not in it. No. That's what you gotta understand about God's prophecy, because like I said, many prophecies are being fulfilled concerning, overall just God and him having his way with the earth realm. That's what, people may refer to biblical prophecy, and God, the God of Israel, will continue to fulfill prophecy even beyond the Bible too, if I'm being real, because this stuff gets very spiritual and deep. That's what certain people got to understand. But yeah, I'm already a part of God's prophecy, humbly speaking, and God's other chosen people are too, and the people who God has interest in and all that deep stuff. But everybody else is outside of it, and being very real. And this stuff is scary in a way too, because these people are under God's wrath and more or less on their way to hell and all these other worst places that I already mentioned. And this stuff is just deep because, most of this stuff is truly already predestined. That's what you got to understand. And it's already, God is in the midst of all these matters, is what you got to understand. And God sees the deeper intention with people. And once again, this stuff is not about being perfect and all that stuff, but you do got to be pure. You do got to be genuine. You do got to be real and all this deep stuff, all this deep stuff plays into if you're a part of God's prophecy. And that's the thing about it, because if you're not any of these things I just mentioned, then you're outside God's prophecy as well. And you're under God's wrath too. That's the thing. See, the thing is about God's chosen people and people who God has interest in. We're not a part of God's wrath, is what you gotta understand. We just have certain sins we deal with and will do, yes. And that's why we need Jesus, the real black Jesus. And we need the God of Israel as well. And the kingdom of heaven and all this deep stuff. And what you got to realize is that, Jesus Christ truly is for us. That's what you got to understand, the real Jesus. And Jesus Christ is, just moving on his people's behalf concerning heaven and concerning our eternity and concerning certain sins that we just deal with, And yeah, but speaking of all these matters as well as I'm being led by the Spirit, but yeah, like religious people and all this stuff that's going on, no, that is not a part of God's prophecy as I'm being led by the Spirit. And the reason why, as I'm getting in depth about it and as I'm being led by the Spirit, the reason why it's not is because there is no fruit. There is no true fruit. Jesus said, you got to be abiding in him and he will abide in you and you will bear much fruit. And if you stay connected to the vine, which is Jesus, you will bear much fruit. And that's what you got to realize. And even as I'm being led by the Spirit, but see, the thing about me is I have, early being, coming into God's kingdom and all that stuff, I've already brought certain individuals in. This is certain individuals that I was connected to or familiar or cool with or anything in that nature. This deals with even certain exes and you can say girlfriends and all that funny stuff too. Yeah. I brought a lot of these people into God's kingdom, and what they do with what God used me to do is up to them. But I tell you now that these people have not forgot about me, and they will not forget about me, and I also will not forget about them either. Now, their intentions towards me is a lot different than how my intentions are towards them. I'll just leave it at that. Some of them may be similar, and then others just may have the wrong intentions, if I'm being real. But I'm aware of these matters more or less, and God is more aware of this on a higher capacity. But early when I came in the kingdom, I brought many people a part of God's prophecy, because God did use me to bring certain people in and, but this was in the beginning of certain matters. And, are these certain individuals a part of God's prophecy? In this time frame, very few are, and then others God is dealing with, and then some they're just not gonna be, if I'm being real. But God is just allowing me to share these certain matters concerning his prophecy, because God's prophecy is truly dealing with, as I'm getting more deep in the Spirit, it's dealing with saving souls, souls going to heaven. It's dealing with angels grabbing souls and taking them to heaven's gate to be judged by God. It's dealing with God's people just reversing love and sharing the love of the real Jesus and sharing love that we just have for each other throughout our battles and throughout our battle of sin. It's God's prophecy is dealing with us spreading Jesus's truth. God's prophecy is dealing with us just dealing and working with the angels, and us just more or less just being honest about things, and us just staying in the Spirit. And it's dealing with us it's just dealing with like bearing fruit of the Spirit, and that's something that religion is just not a part. Like religion will never be a part of this stuff, is what I'm telling you. And this is why God is going to burn that stuff with his fire and brimstone. And that's a part of God's prophecy. Speaking to these matters, I'm just truly being used I'm being used by the Spirit of God, and I'm also being led by the Spirit of God and by him overall. But God the Father is going to burn religion. He's going to burn tradition. He's going to burn it all. And everybody who holding on to it and all this stuff, they will be under God's wrath, and some people will be under his wrath more severely than others. But overall, these individuals will be under God's wrath. I'm being very real, and that's part of God's prophecy as well. And God's prophecy is just God's chosen people truly just tearing down the enemy's kingdom. And this stuff is on a spiritual level. Like, you people who are not spiritual in God and don't have a relationship with God and think that You can't be told anything, all that stuff. You people are not a part of God's prophecy. You people who are fake and phony, you're not part of God's prophecy at all. You're not. And yeah, I mean, this stuff is very deep because like God is doing a new thing. And a lot of you people are just not a part of that stuff. Humbly speaking, you're just not. I'm being very real. And God is going to tell you this more or less himself too. He's going to tell you that, you never believed in biblical prophecy. You never believed in Bible prophecy. This is what God, the Father, is going to tell you. He's going to tell you never believed in Bible prophecy. I sent many, many people to you and you rejected me. You rejected my chosen people too. You thought they were crazy. You thought they were, weird and all this stuff that you people be, this is what you people be this is what you people be professing to God's people. And that's the thing about you people. Like, you people come against stuff you don't understand. And then when God, the real Black Jesus, and when God the Father reveals these things to you later, you still don't really understand, but you still have no choice but to like face the matter because you're facing God now. And God is showing you why he did certain things with certain individuals, because this stuff truly has nothing to do with being perfect and all that stuff. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with what you think about people on the surface either. And all the stuff that I'm saying is part of God's prophecy as well. I'm just truly flowing in the spirit, but yeah, God destroying the wicked court system and all the stuff is a part of God's prophecy. God just stripping people who look like they're in power. They will be powerless according to God. All these people who abuse their authority and all this stuff. Excuse me, these people are a part of what God is doing concerning God's prophecy. God is destroying this stuff. That's what I'm telling you. And yeah, God's prophecy is just truly, truly going to be fulfilled as well. That's what you got to realize. And God's prophecy is some angelic stuff. And this stuff I truly, truly am a part of. And I'm not no perfect person and all that funny stuff. No, but I do really have God. I do really love God. I do have a spiritual relationship with God and all this deep stuff. And yeah, I mean, this stuff is just deep because everybody's not a part of this stuff. That's what I'm telling you. And some of you people may ask, like, how do I be a part of this? I mean, see, the thing is, God has to bring you a part of this. That's the thing. God has to, God knows your true intentions. So the more you keep rejecting his people and all this stuff as well. And overall, you're just rejecting his kingdom when you do that, as he's leading me to say. Because this is deeper than them. And this is deeper than me. As I keep saying these things. But God's people already know this. That's the thing. And we already bear witness with each other. There is no hate and all that stuff. And people who are in secret hate and all that stuff, God is going to judge them too. Because truthfully, the truth be told, like, you just cannot operate in that stuff when you really have intimacy with the real Jesus and the real God. We will not be walking in love perfectly. No. But we do recognize, just the truth. And God's chosen people, once again, we recognize each other is all I'm saying. And overall, this stuff is truly about the God of Israel and Jesus Christ, the real Jesus. But, we recognize each other in the spirit, and, people who turn their back on who's truly chosen and who's really of God and of God's will. I mean, man, I'm not a part of that stuff. I don't have anything to do with that. But I do know that I'm for most people, and others I'm just not. I'm going to be real with you. I'm not for everybody. No, I do not. No, I'm not for everybody. And God is not either. And I've mentioned this many, many times. But I am for God's people. And that is it. More or less, that is it. And people who have interest in God, in God's kingdom and being spiritual in God. Other than that, I don't have anything to say about these matters. But with all that being said, this is all concerning God's prophecy,